Welcome to She Speaks with Yana Me podcast, presented by She3, offering relatable healing and authentic content. In today's episode 103, we will talk about being a teen mom and how it affects the mother-daughter relationship. I am your host, and you're listening to She Speaks with Yana Me. Joining me for today's episode is licensed professional counselor Danielle Portis.
Hi everyone, I'm Danielle Portis and I'm so glad to be here on She Speaks to talk to you all today. I look forward to this conversation.
And could you tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so as Yana said, I am a licensed professional counselor here in Chicago. I work in 2 locations. I actually have started an organization called Rose Gold Crowns, and it is geared to help women and children restore their lives post-trauma. So I work with victims and survivors of trauma. Also, a part of Rose Gold Crowns is I have a Facebook group called Crown Conversations, and it has about 1,800 women in there right now, and it's just a daily source of support, motivation. We have different topics that we talk about. People email me all the time about different topics that they want to discuss anonymously, and I put it in a group as though it's coming from me, just because we're human, and people are shy, and people are really protective of things that they have experienced, but I still want them to have the ability to be able to process their trauma and have a space to be able to get advice and things from their sisters. So I created that space on Facebook, and it's free and open to all women.
Awesome sauce. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So today's episode, we are discussing being a teen mom and how it affects the mother-daughter relationship. So could you tell me more about your life before becoming a teen mom, and then we can get into that.
Okay. My life was I feel it's pretty interesting. I had a lot of support, but one thing I noticed is I had a lot of support in ways that my family wanted to support me, and not necessarily the ways that I needed to be supported or wanted support. So, like, the things that I like to do were I like to write, I like to play with my friends. I was really artsy. I love music. Probably would have appreciated to like act and things like that, but I didn't get those opportunities. I was always overweight. I remember my family specifically, not saying it was like my whole family, but like I remember specific people that would like talk about my weight, or say like I couldn't be a model, or all the things that I couldn't do because of my weight, or because of my personality, or I was shy. Like I said, I like to read. I like to stay to myself, and so I wasn't outgoing. I wasn't the playful child that liked to be around everyone, but I did like to be around like my god sisters and my close cousins and stuff like that. So instead of cultivating or finding out like what I like to do and cultivating those strengths of mine, I feel like more focus was focused on what I couldn't do, and yeah, pretty much like what I couldn't do, and I feel like I had to really find out what I could do, or what I really wanted to do on my own. Also, so my mother was, like I said, I wasn't a bad child. I kind of was like a nerd, and I would go to school, and like I went to McDade, which is like a classical school, and I went to Skinner. I was in the gifted program there. And both of those schools I had to take a bus to, so they weren't my neighborhood schools. And so, like, I remember my friends that I had in the neighborhood that I had since like birth. Like, I remember playing with them in Pampers, and pull-ups and stuff. They felt like I thought I was better than them because I went to schools that weren't in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And then my friends who I had at school, I lived so far away from them that I didn't have that relationship with them outside of school because I didn't live by them. So like Skinner was all the way on the west side. My bus came and got me at like 6:15 in the morning, and school started at 9:30. So,
Wow.
like, that's how far away I was from school. And so, I would barely get to see my friends that I had made at school. And so, I spent a lot of time alone or, like, trying to figure things out on my own. And, my mother, because I wasn't a bad child, she didn't, like, really restrict me much. And I remember, like, growing up, I had cousins that lived in my neighborhood, but they were more restricted than I was, and they weren't bad children either. We were all very smart, but I felt like because my mother allowed me to be more of a free spirit, I was like the bad influence. Like,
Okay.
you can't go with her because she don't got to be back when the lights come on, and that type of stuff. Not that I was out being bad. It was just I could be someone because I'm the type of person where I sit on a tree and read a book for hours, and my mother knew that about me. So it was like, why would I stop her from doing that? But I grew resentment. I feel like I grew more resentment, and I'm saying it now from my mother because I felt like she didn't advocate for me in those situations.
Okay.
So when people like isolated me from their children, I felt like my mother didn't say, "Well, no, she's just doing this," or This is why she's not restricted. She's not doing bad. She's on the honor roll. She's this. She's that." I feel like my mother didn't have those conversations. I don't know if she did or not. I didn't see it.
Which makes a difference.
Yeah. Also in school, when I did start getting in trouble, still it wasn't like being bad or like fighting or anything. I mostly got in trouble for doing like I would do like things that I say like just to give an example, I decided me and my friend, one of my best friends, her name is Danielle too. We've been best friends since we were 5, and we would like sit in a room and really like say like we trying to figure out a way to get out of class, and we would like we would write a whole letter to like the principal saying like we wanted to do this and why we shouldn't have to go to class and stuff like that. So those type of things, and if it wasn't granted, I might like be rebellious or something like that. If I didn't want to stay at school, I might like not wear a uniform because I knew they was gonna send me home, like things like that. And so I kind of got a reputation of like doing what I wanted to do.
Okay.
But like there were multiple times where I was accused of doing things where I didn't do it, and I feel like my mother should have known that I didn't do it, but I would get in trouble at school, and then I would get in trouble at home, and it's like I didn't even do that.
Okay.
So in those situations, also before even school age, my father was abusive to me. And I felt like my mother didn't advocate for me in those situations either. And he died when I was 6, and that's a whole nother podcast. Other things that he did to me and that I saw him do to my sister's sister, and things like that. But I feel like my mother could have did more for me in those times. So I feel like I really resented. I felt unprotected.
Okay.
I felt really unprotected as a child because, like, even as a free spirit, I enjoyed so much, and I was able to find so many things on my own. But it wasn't necessarily something that I wanted to do. I found my own way. I feel like I'm successful, but I feel like I didn't really want to have to do it on my own as much as I have. Or like I talk to people now and they're like, oh, I've been doing this since I was younger, and I was supported in this way and I was supported in that way. And I feel like my life has historically and currently been to where it's like, oh, I accomplished this, let me tell you about it. Like the whole step by step is missed by family. It's like, oh, what you up to now? It's like, been preparing for this for 3 years, did a whole master's program, got my license, like the whole process of coming to now. it's like I felt like I was pretty alone. I had my friends and my classmates, but family, and so I feel like what I lacked as far as support and understanding and really being listened to and heard as a child led me to becoming a teen mom, kind of. Because when I met my daughter's father, um, he was so much like me. He was a writer. He loved to read. I remember our first conversation was just like, oh my God, like, we had read similar books, or we had read some of the same books. So it was like we were together like a full day. He was one of my best friends, boyfriend's best friends.
Okay.
And so I went to her boyfriend's house with her, and he was there. I had talked to him a few times because back then three-way was a thing. And so, like, when she would call her boyfriend, he would call him on three-way, and I would pick up the other phone in the house because we had an upstairs phone and downstairs phone. So we would be on both phones talking to them. So I talked to him a lot, leading up to the point where I actually met him. And the day that I met him, it was like literally like 10 hours of just talking. And we talked about books. We talked about both being Libras. We talked about writing. We like wrote poems. It was like what I felt like I had been missing from everyone. Because even like my friends, like even now, a lot of my friends don't know I write poetry. And that's something that I've been doing since, like, I've been writing my whole life. Like, I remember my kindergarten teacher told me, like, you're going to be a writer. You're going to be an award winning writer as well. So, like I said, I've been writing all my life. So to have someone that I could talk about that was actually listening, that's what made me, like, so vulnerable and felt like, oh, like, this is what a soulmate is supposed to be. Like, I'm going to be with this man for the rest of my life. So whatever happens, happens. That was the mentality that I had then. And I lost my virginity and got pregnant the same day.
Oh, wow.
So it was no figuring it out. It was no talking to my mom, letting her know. Yeah, so it was pretty quick. And I had never had a conversation before about sex or anything. I was 16, and I just turned 16, and all of my friends at the time, I won't say all, I would say like my super close friends, like my best friends and my god sisters who I were always with, like every day for years, they weren't having sex. But as far as like school, all of my friends were having sex and had multiple partners. So I was like the late bloomer at 16. Like now, that's like so sad.
Yes, I totally understand where you're coming from with that, because that was my experience as well. That most of my friends, majority of the people in my school, were having sex, and I didn't lose my virginity until I was 16. After I turned 16 as well.
Okay.
And I was gonna ask you, did you and your mom ever have any type of sex talks prior to, at all?
Nope. I remember it was a joke one time because my god sister. I came on my cycle early. I was about 9 when I got my first cycle, and my god sister, I remember she came on maybe like 12, right? And she was at our house, and she was just like bawling, crying, and I'm like, "What is going on? Like, it's okay. Like, I've been having this for 3 years. Like, we just gonna get you some pads. It's cool." And she was like, I don't want to have a baby. I'm not ready. So she thought that you come on your cycle and then you instantly get pregnant. She didn't know that sex played a part. And so that was like a conversation that day because my mother told us, like, no, you have to have sex but it wasn't detailed as far as about sex. It was just like to get her to understand that she couldn't just have a baby just because. So that was like the only time.
And my mom, we didn't we didn't have any conversations about sex. The only thing she would say if like I said in my last podcast, if I was sick or something, she'd be like, "Are you pregnant? Are you having sex?" Like, it was no talk about it. Like, Maury, back then Maury had them shows, the baby daddy shows, the teen pregnancy and stuff like that. And then she would just say, "That better not be you." But we never had conversations about sex, about how to protect yourself, and none of that stuff. And I remember going to go put myself on birth control. Okay. When I was 17, and my sister was there. Okay. And so I'm like, damn, I'm gonna have to tell her because my sister gonna tell her first. So I had to tell her myself. Okay. But I didn't tell her I was having sex already. I just said I was thinking about it and I wanted to get on birth control. Okay. She didn't want me on the birth control I chose, so I had to go back and get a different birth control, which messed me up because that's when I ended up getting pregnant. Okay. When I was trying to transition into the different birth control. So.
And how we found out. So, like I said, I lost my virginity on, I believe it was Thanksgiving, and so my grandmother ended up passing away in January, and I believe it was maybe February when my mother was like, I don't know what changed, because at this time I wasn't like sneaking out, like I wasn't going anywhere, and I don't know what made her ask me, but she asked me had I had sex, and I was like, yeah, I have. She's like, I'm putting you on birth control. So we went to the doctor maybe that week, and they told her, so mind you, this whole time I'm getting my period, because they told her that I had to come at the start of my period in order to get the pills. So now this is February, so we ended up going back in March when my period came, and they gave me a pregnancy test, and they gave me a regular pregnancy test, and I don't know if it didn't read, so then they did the blood test, and it came back positive. And so then they did an ultrasound, and my daughter was in there with like hands and feet.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah, like it was all like a blur. I didn't know. I'm not gonna say I didn't know that I was pregnant, because I felt different. I actually told her father, like, I think I'm pregnant. And we took multiple pregnancy tests, but they all said negative. The home pregnancy test from like Walgreens, they all said negative, and I did that for maybe like a month in December, and I'm like, well, maybe my body's just changing because I'm having sex for the first time, and I didn't think more of it because I believed the pregnancy test, and I went on with my life. And then,
how did that conversation go with your mom after she found out you were pregnant?
Oh, it really wasn't a conversation, because I'm laying on the table. They did the ultrasound, and she was discussing abortion options with the doctor. And I'm like, that's not an option for me. Like, she's alive, and like, she has hands, she has feet, so that's no option. And I remember like crying and leaving out the room and telling my friend was in the lobby, and I was just telling her, like, let's go, because she's trying to kill my baby. Like I was. It really wasn't any conversation, any positive conversation. Okay. And I don't know how she ended up like coming around, but it was never an option for me. Like abortion, that was never something. Before I even got pregnant, I didn't believe in it. I remember writing papers in school about I was anti-abortion, like, so that was never something that I would ever consider. I don't know if my aunt talked to her, or like I said, I don't remember. It was like a blur. It was just me preparing to be a mom after that. Like, I don't know. I don't know what happened between that time and August when my daughter got here. Okay. My mother was there when she was born. She was in the room with me, so I'm assuming she came around and started to be more supportive. Yeah.
And so what was your experience? How did your relationship with your mom change after you had your baby?
I guess my expectations changed. but not really. It became more about my daughter and
Okay.
less about me. But like I realized a couple years ago, like I still hadn't healed from those things, and so it was like the resentment just like built and built and built, and never got never got handled or taken care of or even discussed. Um, and even to this day, like to have conversations with her about things that I felt were wrong about in my childhood, like those aren't successful conversations. So it's basically like, as long as you're a good grandmother, I'm cool.
Okay. Do you feel like you guys will ever be able to have those conversations, like without her getting upset, with her actually just listening to you?
Mm-mm, I don't. I would hope so. I know that my delivery has to probably change.
Okay.
Um, I've grown so much, and there were times when, like I said, my delivery wouldn't have been, probably wasn't the most respectful. So I can understand how that may have been intimidating or made her less willing to communicate. But like within the last like 5 years, like I've grown. Like I'm a therapist. I know how to talk to people. I know
Mm-hmm.
how to listen to people. Um, so never have I, not, I'm not gonna say never. Recent years, um, I haven't been disrespectful in my delivery, and not even because I feel like so you're a therapist, and so for me now it's like I know for her to have even been able to be there for me the way I expected her to be there for me, or the way I needed her to be there for me, she had to know how.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realize now that her mother wasn't there for her emotion. Like my grandmother wasn't there for me emotion. I remember telling my grandmother I love you, and she's like, mm-hmm. You know, so those things like emotion that wasn't in my house at all.
Okay.
My grandparents, they weren't loving. They weren't like, I've never seen them say anything nice to one another. Um, and so I don't know what her life was like growing up, and I think that I know that the conversations that we've had recently, where I've asked her like about her childhood, is like her like making excuses kind of for her parents.
Okay.
And like, oh, it wasn't that bad, or it wasn't okay, maybe not, but it still shaped you, or
Mm-hmm.
it still made a difference. So like, I want to talk about it, but it visibly shows her like in her that she's uncomfortable, and so it's like I don't press it, but until we can even talk about that, like I feel like it'd be hustling backwards for me to talk
Okay.
about our relationship and not go from the root. But I'm not her therapist. You know, I can't push that on her. And I go to therapy. Like I feel like I have that support now to where I have been able to process and figure it out so that I don't repeat those
Mm-hmm.
things. And so I can trace my behavior back to where it started and things like that. And so it hasn't been, it hasn't been that, it hasn't been a priority to me lately to
Okay.
have those conversations. And it's like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I would love to have those conversations while she's living, while I'm living, because anything can change at
Mm-hmm.
any given time.
And you want to be able to have not necessarily that closure, but that understanding.
Yeah, yeah, and also to, because now my daughter's about to be 16 in a couple weeks, and so even like for her to know how to support her, like there's no cookie cutter way,
Mm-hmm.
and like she, I feel like my mom sometimes is like, I'm too lenient on my daughter, and it's kind of like, I feel like it's kind of like how people saw her.
Okay.
But me and my daughter are two different people. Me and my mother are two different people. But it's still like no grace. I feel like.
Okay.
And kind of like sometimes I want to ask, like, you weren't this strict, for me. I was riding my bike, 30 blocks away. And nobody was like, I didn't even have a cell phone, so you couldn't call me every 30 minutes, every hour.
I see where you are. I feel like my mom is the opposite. She's more lenient wants me to be more lenient with my kids. Okay. And I'm like, but this is where I get it from. Like, you were mad strict. I could not go anywhere.
Okay.
There was I had to be in before the street lights was on, but I couldn't even leave the block.
Wow.
I couldn't go to any friends' houses. I couldn't participate on any sports teams because it got me home after dark. Like, she was strict. And her reasoning, which I understand, but at the same time wasn't fair, was she didn't want to let me go, and she didn't want anything to happen to me. And she wanted to keep me safe and sheltered. But it kept me from experiencing things, experiencing just different situations that would prepare me better for adulthood. So for me, when I became an adult, I didn't know how to say no to people. Okay. So I was in quite a few situations I didn't want to be in because I didn't know how to say no. I let people kind of like walk over me, just do whatever they told me to do. Because growing up, I didn't have a voice and I didn't have a choice. So, and then to go back to when you talked about your mom not being supporting you the way that you wanted her to, I remember when I told my mom, well, I didn't tell my mom I was pregnant. The doctor did because I went to the emergency room and she didn't go with me. I begged her to let my sister drop me off. My sister dropped me off, but she had been calling up there to see if I was okay, but they never told me. So she walked in like right. As soon as she walked in and sat down, the doctor walked in like 5 seconds later. He didn't look up. He looked at his paper. He said, "You're right. You are pregnant. You have a bladder infection. Yada, yada, yada." I didn't even look at it. I felt like it was a hole burning in my head. But either way, she let me make the decision myself. Okay. And so I made a decision that I thought everybody wanted. Because he said he wasn't ready to be a dad. I thought my mom and my dad were going to be disappointed in me because from prior conversations of you saying, like, you better not get pregnant, this better not be you, that let me know that this is not what you wanted for me, so I need to figure it out. So I made the decision not to have the baby because I felt like that's what everybody wanted me to do. And I didn't resent them. I think I resented myself, but I wish we had the conversation because she made a comment one time. I was in the room crying, and she saw me crying, and she was like, I think she said something like, "You should have never did it," or something like that. But that wasn't the reason I was crying. I was crying because of the boy, but that wasn't the exact reason. I'm like, damn. Well, why you didn't say this before I made the decision? We could have had a conversation about this. So I do feel like that just could have been, that situation could have been much better than what it was.
Yeah, communication is a major piece of mother-daughter relationships. And that's big, too, that you said, because you didn't have a voice. As a child, you didn't even know how to use it when you had the opportunity. Yeah, that's deep.
So how has being a teen mom, your experiences with being a teen mom, affected, good or bad, your relationship with your baby?
So I'll talk about the bad first. I feel like the bad was at some points her seeing me as a peer because we lived with my mom, and for the first couple years of her life, my grandparents as well. Okay. Or my grandfather. So it was like her asking, could she do something? And I still gotta ask too.
Okay.
So it's like kind of like a weird dynamic. and we kind of like grew up together. But then now it's more beneficial because I'm not that far removed from teenage years, and so I understand more. We're able to talk more with ease. We have excellent communication. I feel like my daughter talks to me. My daughter and her friends talk to me about any and everything. Um, so I think that's the benefit that it made our communication better to have, and it's not like me looking down on her
Mm-hmm.
or like I'm 20, 30 years older than her, 30, 40 years older than her, and I'm forgetting what it was like for me as a teen, as a lot of parents do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's been a benefit, and even like our tastes are similar. Um, I would say we like a lot of the same music. We like a lot of the same entertainment. So we can still like enjoy one another's company. So she likes to be around me, opposed to like time with mom feel like a chore.
Okay.
So I feel like that's a plus too. But the biggest negative part was me having to take my role as a parent and do what I had to do, especially to continue to grow, so that she could see me in that role
Mm-hmm.
and respect me in that role. And that took a lot too. And also, um, I had learned in therapy actually, because we both had to go, and so I learned that emotionally we were around the same age.
Okay.
And I feel like that was because I stopped growing. Like I said, when I had her, it was as long as you're a good grandma to her, like it's okay. As long as you're a good grandfather to her, it's cool. As long as you're a good auntie to her, it's cool. Like if I kept myself contained, I didn't really. I remember times when, I mean, it was like at least 3 years. I scheduled my tears. Like
Oh
I would
wow.
literally say I cried or handled like all difficult stuff after 11:30 because I knew my daughter was asleep, and that was my time for me to like break down because it was hard, or not necessarily motherhood but life period. I was in some really difficult relationships, um, had some really strenuous jobs. I never stopped going to school. So it's always a lot of stuff that I was battling.
A lot of stress.
Yeah, trying to balance, but I never let her see that. And so, or I tried my best to keep that away from her. And so I would, like I said, I would schedule times to like be my true self. And I stopped doing that. I didn't stop doing that until 2017, actually, because our great aunt passed away. And we were sitting in the memorial, and I'm just sitting there looking, like everybody's crying and stuff, and I'm just sitting there. And my daughter's just sitting there, and she turned around, she's like, "You crying, Ma?" And I was like, "Nah." She's like, "I know, because we savages, right?" And I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, we don't cry." And in that moment, I want to tell her, like, "Girl, do you know how much I cry?" Like, you don't know the half. But I realized that, and prior to that, like, from fifth grade to 2017, like, she was so angry, so mean to everybody. She had so many, like, challenges in school with her behavior, suspended, just all type of stuff. It was all behavior, not, it was never um, her capability to do her work. Like, her teachers would say, like, she has the ability to be a genius, to get straight A's. It's just her behavior, and
Okay.
like it was that type of thing. And so I realized, like, she's not allowing herself to feel because she feels that I'm not. And so I had to take my place as her role model, and not just her parent, but I have to model what this looks
Mm-hmm.
like for you. I have to model what feelings look like. What do you do with those? How they don't paralyze you. Like I was portraying that I had it all together, and I felt like it was helping her, but it really hindered her. And so not too long after that, um, when we both had to like see a therapist for like different reasons, did I realize, like in therapy one day, she had drew a picture of us, a family portrait, and the lady told me, she was like, she said, I've been doing this for a year. She said, I've never saw a child draw her and her mom exactly the same. She was like, even if it's a stick figure, it'll be a big stick figure
Yeah.
and a little stick figure. She was like, but she drew you all exactly the same. She feels that you all are exactly the same. And I'm like, dang. And I had to like think, like, when I had her, I stopped my development, and I focused so much on her. And like I said, I stayed in school, so I was growing in degrees. Got my associates, got my bachelor's, got my master's, but mentally
And
or emotionally, I was still the same. And so I had to go back and do the work.
I think that's one of the hardest things for me is, so growing up for me and my mom, I saw her cry twice.
Okay.
At my grandmother's funeral, and then when her grandmother died, who was my great grandmother, she shed a few tears at her dresser, and that was it. And then as an adult, though, our relationship has drastically changed, and so she shows me the more vulnerable side of her. But growing up, I didn't see that. And then I was the opposite. I was an entire crybaby about everything, like very sensitive. Please don't yell at me. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Like, and I'm still very sensitive when it comes to watching TV commercials. And people can hurt my feelings easily too. But I find it hard for me to show my emotions like she did outside of like crying from a commercial.
Okay.
I can say my boys have seen me cry, and the girls, both girls and boys, have maybe seen me cry when at death.
Okay.
You know, outside of TV, it's been at death, but nothing else. But they have seen what my frustration and anger looks like, but to me, not in a good way. Just like when I'm just like at my wits' end and y'all getting on my nerves, and then I just lash out that way. So of course, that's not a healthy way either. So it's been hard for me to find that balance.
What does that feel like for you, though?
I feel bad sometimes, especially because I'm a cusser, right? And I realize they're not like me. So when my mom would cuss, that didn't bother me. So when I went to basic training for the Army, when they used to cuss me out, like the other people would be crying and stuff, but it didn't faze me because, dude, my mom cussed way worse than you. So it never hurt my feelings or nothing like that. I feel like they should be able to handle me as a cusser because, you know, it doesn't mean anything, but they're totally different kids than I was. And so my son is like me, the 10-year-old. He's very sensitive like me. He doesn't like to be yelled at, not even the little bit. He doesn't like it. The 6-year-old, he can handle a little bit better, but he a crybaby too. Okay. But and then the girls, they don't like it. Okay. You know, and then I'll go through my stages where I'm able to not cuss, and then they don't listen to me when I don't cuss. So even the 23, she's 23 now, she'll tell me, well, you know, she think I'm crazy or something when I don't cuss, or what's wrong with you? You're being too nice. I'm trying to go away a different approach. You know, I don't feel like I need to always yell. I don't want to always yell. I don't want to always cuss. I want to be able to tell you to do something in the nicest voice ever, and you do it, but that's when they don't listen to me. So it's like, damned if I do, damned if I don't. But yeah, I feel like it still needs to be worked on and changed, because I would like to not cuss at all, especially at the kids. Even if I cuss them, you know, in other areas of personal life or with my friends and stuff like that, I can deal with that. Yeah. But I do would like to completely quit cussing when it comes to the kids, because I don't want them to have that. I don't know. I don't want them to feel like that's how their mom should talk. Or they should talk to their kids. I don't want them to feel like they should find a spouse that cusses and will talk to them like that, and they don't like it. You know, I don't want my boys to feel like they're going to get a woman who's going to talk to them like that. And then the same thing with the girls. So that's just been my struggle, my internal struggle that I'm trying to work on, because I feel like it makes a difference. So like even for my relationship or for my marriage, I found somebody that's just like my stepdad. Exactly like him. I didn't realize it then, but I realized it more and more as we continue to grow that he's exactly like him. And then I realized that I'm very aggressive. But it went from me not being aggressive as a kid and as a younger adult to joining the military and then having to become aggressive with people. And so then I just went like from one extreme of not being able to do anything to the next extreme of being overly aggressive. And so I was still trying to figure that out. Okay. And I don't want them to, I don't want them to have those struggles and have those types of relationships to where, they are the aggressive party and like, why you get mad about something so small? Or, just like that. Yeah. So do you feel like you've had a turning point yet in your relationship with your mom? Or what was your turning point like? As far as when you guys were able to start communicating better or talking more maybe, even if it was just on a basic level?
I say no, because I feel like we've always been able to talk on a basic level.
Okay.
So that hasn't changed. I've always had a relationship with my mom. I've always been able to go to my mom. Like I can go to my mom and talk to my mom about something. I just don't like her responses.
Okay.
So it's not like I haven't had a relationship where I can't talk to my mom, but it's really like I feel like it's superficial or and she's not the only one, but I feel like my mom is really like she'll ask everybody a million questions, but she's secretive. So
okay.
And for me, I'm not a person that asks a lot of questions. Like I feel because I don't like questions. I don't like when people ask me a lot of questions. Like I feel like I'll tell you what I want you to know. And so
I think I'm kind of like your mom then.
Okay.
Like I love to ask questions. I'm very nosy. I want you to just share everything with me. And but I also on the other end of that very private and very scared to trust people and give them what I'm asking of others to give me.
Yeah. So that's my mom. And like I said, she'll ask, and then even like I could be out with my friends and she'll like ask me many questions about them. And I'm like, I didn't even ask all that. Like I don't know. You call them, you ask them. So I treat people. I guess I treat people how I want to be treated, and so I don't ask all those questions. I feel like if somebody wanted me to know something, they'll tell me, and so I don't know. I feel like I don't know as much about my mom as I could because I don't ask those questions. And I feel like the questions that I've had asked, her defensiveness has allowed me to just let it go. Like,
you say skip it.
Yeah, because it's like, well, I didn't really need to know that anyway. So it's like, okay. So kind of like, I guess it's kind of like avoidance of defensiveness or like having an argument.
Confrontation.
Yeah, confrontation.
And for something just not to go anywhere and just keep repeating itself.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so like I can talk to my mom. I talk to my mom every day. I talk to her about work. I talk to her about my friends. But it's like it's me telling her about things that I'm going through. And I don't take it personal because she doesn't tell her friends much either.
Okay.
So it's just her. Yeah.
I think that's one of the, I don't know, for me and my mom, we had a turning point in our relationship before I went to Afghanistan.
Okay.
We had like a all-out talk of me telling her what I was upset about for these past couple of years and her telling me she was mad at me for joining the military because she didn't want me to leave home at all. Okay. She wanted me to stay. And I knew that, but I didn't want to stay. I needed to leave. And she was making that process difficult, so I joined the Army to make sure I could leave. And so, but we got all that out, and then we were able to, we just gotten closer and closer each year. Like, I talked to her, like, I call her phone. If anything ever happened to me and the police have to go through my records, they'll be like, damn.
Wow.
Like, how often does she talk to her mom? Like, we talk FaceTime all day,
Wow.
all day. FaceTime phone calls all day. Like,
Wow.
she's the most number dialed in my phone
Wow.
every day. And so that's been, and I'm able to share everything with her, about how I'm feeling, what I'm going through, anything that's going on with my marriage. But she be trying to talk about sex, but it's a little bit too much for me. And then she's more open too. And she even wrote me, I haven't opened the envelope.
Wow.
I have not, I don't know, I'm scared to open, I'm scared to learn or read what she's going to tell me. But, she wrote me a long letter. She told me it was very long, just giving me history,
Wow.
of what she's been through since she was younger.
How long have you had it?
Oh man, some months. I want to say she mailed it to me before my kids got out of school.
Wow.
So it's been, I've had it for some months now, and I don't know, I'm scared to read it. I think it'll be a good thing. It'll give me more information about, why she's the way she is, why she became angry and just different things like that. Will make me better understand her as a mom and the decisions that she made. But I've been scared to know it. Wow. And I got the opportunity to know it. And I'm just nervous about reading it.
Did she ask you, have you read it?
She asked me once. Okay. I told her I hadn't read it yet, and she hasn't asked me again. Okay. So she's going to ask me again after this when she listens to this weekend. And I'm going to go ahead and read it. But I don't know. I just was like, I was scared. Like, is there too much you can know? Yeah. Is there certain things that you don't want to know? But I know nothing's going to make me look at her differently. Like, I love that lady to death. So nothing's going to change that. I'm just like, man, maybe it's too much information. Mm-hmm. Maybe I don't need to know. So wow. That's been my thing with that.
That's interesting.
So do you feel like the relationship with your daughter, do you feel like you've modeled it off of, not necessarily off the relationship with your mom, but what you would have wanted as a mom, and been able to model? What was your thoughts going into it? Like, did you have this idea of the type of mom that you wanted to be, the things that you were sure that you were going to do or not do?
Not really. I feel like I'm really different, and don't really model it off anything. I really ask my daughter a lot, like, what do you want? What do you need? I'm here if you want to talk about it. Like, I don't press the issue. I just let her know I'm here. And she's so much different than me. So, like, as a child, I remember my mom would take me to, because I had friends that lived on the west side, because I went to school on the west side. And so, like, on weekends, we would go to, like, Rainbow Skating Rink, which is, like, it's not there anymore, but it was, like, on the northwest side, I believe. But it was, like, it took us about 30, 45 minutes to get there. And I would go maybe, like, every weekend. Often. I don't remember the time. So that I could have that time with my friends, and we would go, like, we ran, because I was the only child. So we always was, like, out doing something, or she would take me and my friends places. My daughter isn't really like that. So, like, I'll be like, you want to, like, this weekend, somebody asked me if me and my daughter wanted to go to a WNBA game. I asked my daughter, you want to go to this? She's like, no, ma'am. So, I'm way more spontaneous than my daughter is.
Okay.
So, like, that's different. And then, like, talking, I feel like because I'll advocate, she doesn't tell me much until she has to.
Okay.
Especially at school. Like, I feel like she tries to, like, handle it, figure stuff out, or she'll tell me. Like, if she gets in trouble at school and a teacher calls me, she's already called me and told me. And so I'm just like, okay, I know. Like, how can we move forward? She's very open. So it's like, we don't have, there's really no gaps to fill to like model.
Okay.
It's really, I feel like it's really unique, because like she's her. She's a lot different from me. I feel like she's more like her father's side of the family. Um, but yeah, and so just to support that, one thing that I do that I don't think that I had that I wanted was like try to cultivate things that she likes. So like she'll come up with an idea, and I'm like, girl, you want some business cards? You want like a website build? Like, what do you need? What do you want? How do we build this? And she's like, I don't even know if I want to do this for real. So I feel like I'm more intense in like cultivating those things.
To try to make her know that she has that support.
Yeah. And then like even like helping her to grow in those areas that she wants to grow in, and not try to like put something on her just because I like it or I want to do. I don't force her to do anything because I knew how uncomfortable that made me, and also because I want her to have a voice. And I know a lot of times, because that's something that I struggle with too. Like I didn't have a voice, and I remember when I was doing my internship supervisor actually asked me, and that it was a game changer for me. And she was like, "Who took your voice from you?" Mm. And so I always try to make sure my daughter has that. And like there's times when people's like, she got too much input for a child, or she this and that. And I'm like, she gonna be a bomb adult though, you know? Because I just feel like supporting her through that now and preparing her for that. Like some people would say like that's growing up too fast, or like I never really talked to her and baby talk either. Like I was having real conversations with her, and people be like, "What in the world? She don't know what you saying. Like she know what I'm saying." So I always wanted her to have a voice and to be able to communicate and feel like she could at least bring to me what she wanted, even if, and I explain myself too. That's something that a lot of parents don't do. But I felt like there was so much ambiguity in me growing up where I had to figure things out on my own. Like, well, why can't I do that? Or let me see what happens if I do that then. Because ain't nobody told me why I can't do that or why that's bad for me. It don't sound too bad. Everybody else doing it. So, like, if I tell her no, like, my daughter will ask me why. And I'll tell her why. Because I'm telling you no for a reason. I don't want you to have to figure it out or fill in no blanks for you. And sometimes she's asked me why, and I didn't have a reason. I'm like, I'm just saying no because I didn't feel like talking about it, or I was tired. Like I have to. She forces me to hold myself accountable and be real, and I feel like I cultivated that. Like I made her that way.
And that's something I had to. I changed during the process. Because that's how my mom was. Okay. Her answer was no, and if she said no, that was it. Don't ask why. If you ask why, it was because I said so. I even got a mug that says because I said so. But I ended up changing it and allowing them to. And I know it's going to seem like it's so unfair to the girls because I am changing more. And so I still have like 10 years left to go with the other kids. So things are definitely going to be different for them. But I did start it with the girls to allow them to ask why. And then explaining why, even if I had an attitude about having to explain why. Because I didn't get that, but it was a struggle. I had to fight myself because that wasn't what I was used to. What I was used to was the answer is no, and it's no. Don't ask me why. Because I said so. And I even still find myself sometimes still saying because I said so, and then coming back and saying, well, you can't have it right now, maybe after dinner, or, just different explanations like that.
Yeah, like I remember being out with her one day, and we were like playing in the park, and I don't remember what she asked me for, but I said no, and she was like, why? And she might have been like 4 or 5, and so I told her, and some random person in the park was like, you explaining yourself, and you could tell you a young mom, and blah blah. And I was like, okay, and like they just kept talking, and when they finished, I was like, well, for you it's I'm a young mom. For me, it's she's a child that needs to know why. Period.
As simple as that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I always explain why. Like you said, even if I have an attitude about it, even if I don't feel like explaining myself or don't feel like I had to, or frustrated because I've explained myself. Like, you shouldn't ask me again. We had this conversation already, but yeah, I make my reasoning plain for her so that she has to figure out less lessons on her own if possible.
Which makes such a huge difference. Makes a difference, and not having to have that weight on your shoulders of having to figure it out on your own, and not have anybody to talk to about it, and prevents them to having to make such huge decisions on their own.
And I tell her too, I'm like, because I'm like, I know I'm your mom. I know there's going to be things that you don't want to talk to me about, but find help. If it's somebody at school, whether it's a friend, so she's really good at. I feel like every school that she's been to, she's had like a mom at school, and I'm so appreciative of that. So we have like a good village, I'll say. Cause I've told her like find somebody that you can talk to. You don't have to talk to me about everything, but don't keep it in or don't try to figure it out on your own because there's people who've been here longer than you and have experienced things that you haven't experienced. And like I say the same thing to adults, and that was the main reason why I wanted to create the Crown Conversations group because like at the time I was hosting ladies nights, and I would do them in like different neighborhoods, and so it would be different age groups, different demographics, different races, different it could be different career paths, and there were similarities in the struggles that women were going through, no matter what they look like. And I'm like, I didn't know that, like you mean to tell me you 40-year-old Hispanic woman and you have experienced the same thing I've experienced? Like, no way. We feel like people are so different than us, but there's so many similarities in us. And so that's why I wanted to create the group. And it started because I started doing meetups. And we would all put topics in anonymously and discuss them. But it was always something left over because the discussion would go so long. And I'm like, I need to have a place to talk about it after the meetup. And so that's how the Facebook group came along.
Okay.
And so, but yeah, it came because it's like we could just talk to other people and get insight into what you've experienced or what your friend has experienced or something. Like, we all know other people who have experienced something. So, yeah.
Okay. So what are some takeaways that you would want anybody who's been a teen mom, still in that relationship with their daughter, still growing, still trying to figure it out, or anybody that's going to become a teen mom? What would be your takeaways for them, and how to develop their relationship with their daughter, or to repair their relationship with their mom, or any of that?
I would say the biggest takeaway is don't give up on yourself. And don't count yourself out when others do. Because I feel like that was a big... I feel like that was a big thing for me. When I was in high school, like I remember the principal at the time even told me, like, she tried to have me expelled because I was pregnant. And told me that I would be a bad influence for the other children.
Wow.
And there were at least 2 or 3 other girls that were pregnant at the same time. I don't know if the same conversation was had with them or not because we weren't friends. But yeah, I feel like that was something that really kind of could have really disabled me, to have my principal tell me that, or if I would have had to leave the school or something like that. And I'm like, it was a big thing. Like, my mother was telling me I shouldn't have the baby. Had her friends telling me like, you ain't never gonna find a man.
Wow.
Ain't nobody gonna want you with no kids. You ruining your life. You this, you that. And the same people today congratulate me on my success. So it's just like the support that I could have had at the time, I didn't necessarily have, but God placed what I needed in my life, even if it didn't come from where I thought it would come from.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's happened throughout my lifetime, because like I said, I had to find my own way a lot of the times. Even when I like went to get my master's, it was, you don't need to take no loans out. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do that. And so I had to like make those decisions on my own. I had to do homework even if there was distractions in the background and lack of support and things like that, lack of motivation. I had to find my own way, and I had to find people that would support me and people that I really got close with, my classmates. So I feel like not counting myself out was a huge thing, because even along the way, like I've had jobs that paid less than I was worth. Like I said, I had an associate's and a bachelor's, but I was working at a restaurant because the hours was flexible and I had to go to school. Like I wasn't trying to, whatever job that I had, I wasn't trying to be there forever. Mm-hmm. And so I just needed something to be able to provide, but I only had a babysitter for a certain amount of hours, so, or I still had to pick her up from school or drop her off at the school bus, things like that. So just figuring out what you need and making it happen, and identifying the people that can help you, and do what you gotta do. I mean, not necessarily just saying it like nonchalant, like, but it's really easier than it sounds like, mm-hmm. because the people that did support me, I didn't know that they were coming. I don't know where they were coming from, but I've never went without. I've never been without support. I can't say that in any time of my life I didn't have support, or I didn't have somebody to talk to, or I didn't have somebody that was experienced. And like I said, I go to school, I made friends. I had support, or people like me, doctors, that were friendly and understanding. They gave me information and resources that I needed to have. Some of my friends' moms had resources for me, and it wasn't because their children had babies. It was just because they saw I had a need. Mm-hmm. So just not allowing people to make you feel like it's the end of the world, because it's not, and you can be just as successful as you desire to be, if you put your mind to it and allow other people in. Like, don't lose trust, or definitely don't lose trust for people, but also don't close yourself off to receive help just because it doesn't come from who you want it to come from. Because if that was the case, like, my life would have went a whole different way. Like, if I sat and waited on my mother or someone in my family to support me like 100% with pom-poms and everything, like, I would still be in the same place to this day.
Understood. Well, that is all for today. I want to thank you so much for being my guest. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
And you guys can hear more from Danielle at the I Am She Is Me Mother-Daughter event that will take place November 2nd here in Chicago at the Dan Ryan Woods. There will be more to come about there and where you can purchase tickets, but please be on the lookout for it. Thank you for tuning in and listening to She Speaks with Yana Me. Please join us next week as we will be discussing toxic relationships with a special guest.